remember that we met about a year ago at the Candybots job fair, and you came over and introduced yourself. And I was like, oh, like you're a TTI. And I told you exactly what I thought about it. And without missing a beat, you gave me such good answers that I have been telling my clients about TTI ever since. So remind me, what was it that convinced me? Tell me about what TTI really is.
TTI is essentially a route to college, right? A route to going through college. So we differentiate the secular world from the frum world. In the secular world, in the secular market, college is looked at as an ideal, a place that people go, they plan their whole lives for this time period in their lives when they're going to go to college, and they spend years, the parents spend years saving up money for college, and the men and women spend years in college, and college is looked at as an experience that somebody needs to go through in order to, it's part of life experience. You go to college. And then the byproduct is that you're getting a degree. And interestingly enough, in the secular world, just because you get a degree doesn't mean that you now have like a specific job. A lot of times they'll get a degree in something that's like irrelevant to any job, and then they go for even more degrees. At TTI, we look at college as a systemized way for somebody to come to an end result. And the end result is that you need to be able to perform at a certain job. And therefore, we offer a pathway to a career. And we strip away any of the college experience that somebody would experience in a secular setting. And therefore, what you'll find at TTI is a very focused, structured routes, pathways to certain degree options, to certain careers. So if you want to become an occupational therapist, we strip away everything that doesn't have to do with becoming an occupational therapist. And we are just offering you what you need to come out as an awesome occupational therapist. Same thing for speech therapy, same thing for education, same thing for accounting. We're really looking to take the process and pull it down, to take away any of the experience and really invest in the student, the education they need to perform at that specific job. Therefore, this is really like the crux of the answer of what is our bachelor's degree, and what, how could our bachelor's degree be so easy and so simple, and is it real, is it legit, and all that. So really, this really goes straight into that answer, and that is that our bachelor's degree is looked at as a stepping stone to a master's. And what do I mean by that? Just like in school system, in order to go to high school, you need to go to elementary school. You finish elementary school, you go to high school. In order to get a bachelor's, you need to have a high school diploma or GED. The same system is in place for somebody who wants to get a master's, to train in a certain area. If you want to become an occupational therapist, you need to have a bachelor's. And therefore, what we try to do is we really try to cut down on the amount of time and effort that's invested in the bachelor's process. And the student can therefore spend the most amount of time and energy in the training they're going to need to go into that specific field. So our bachelor's degrees, we're not asking the students to focus on it. We want them to go really quick. We don't want them to spend money on it. We don't want them to spend time on it. We want them to just get that piece of paper so that they can go into the master's program. And then once they're in the master's program, that's where we're going to push them like so hard. And it's funny, we get the feedback that our master's programs are so hard. And the reason it is because we want you to know what you're doing. When you graduate, you're going to go and you're going to be able to work. And you're going to have the training that you need. And the way we can pull that off almost is because our students are so hyper-focused in the master's and the graduate programs, or even an undergraduate. When we talk about a career preparation, we're talking about taking away the college experience and really focusing on the training. And therefore, all the time that our students spend in our programs is really, really just focused on that. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, you convinced me then, and you just totally convinced me all over again.
Okay.
And I love that, because really, meaning people who go to a 4-year bachelor's program will tell you it's a lot about the community, the social life,
right.
Figuring out what they want to do. And it sounds like students who come into you know exactly what they want to do, and they're in it to get straight to work.
That's what's amazing about TTI, is that students come into us and they may not know exactly what they want to do, and that's totally fine. We're good with that. As a matter of fact, what we'll tell students all the time is to start your degree, at least get something under your belt. Like take your math, science, English, take your Hebrew language exam, take the certain basics, your history exam, these are degree requirements, take those core requirements, and you have until 75% of your bachelor's degree to decide where you're differentiating. Maybe you'll decide you want to go for accounting. Maybe you're going to decide you want to go for nutrition. Maybe you're going to want to do cybersecurity. I don't know, whatever it is you're going to choose to do, you'll have that option later on. So we really try to give students the opportunity to jumpstart on their degree and get started right away without, that is a benefit in the secular system where people have time almost to like figure out what they want to do. They dabble in this and they dabble in that till they figure out what they want to really like major in or what they want to go for. So we try to give students the opportunity, like the benefit of time. And we try to, we always give them, if they don't come in knowing exactly what they want to do the first day, that's totally fine. They have until 75% through their degree to really make that ultimate decision. And they do, and we really do our best to guide them and help them make the wisest choice so that they don't just jump into something that they're not really ready for. Make sense?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And obviously, like as a coach, I get to deal with them hopefully before, right? So that
hopefully before, right.
Right. And I've spent a lot of time on your site with people who say, like my number one criteria is going to affirm flexible programs. So then I say, okay, well then let's get on TTI's website, and there are not a lot of other great choices. So I've done that with people. And then the hard thing is though, that sometimes in dealing with people who are post-degree and post, a job that they don't really like because they didn't really go through the process. So is there anything that you have in place to guide them to choosing the right thing?
Yes, 100%. So we have this amazing admissions staff. Everyone on our admission staff has been working for TTI for 10 plus years. Everyone is extremely experienced, has a lot of knowledge under their belt. They've heard about every career under the sun. Sometimes I'm amazed myself. It's like the question goes out, has anyone ever heard about this and this field? And there's always somebody that pops up and says, yeah, sure, I know all about it. And they could give you a whole synopsis of what it is and what people could do in that area, and examples. So
wow.
When you're talking about our admission staff, you're talking about a team of extremely knowledgeable women who've really we put years of training into them, and they have years of knowledge about so many different fields under their belt. And when somebody calls us at TTI, the admissions team is really amazing at figuring out what the person, is there something at TTI we can offer them or not? And if there is something that we can offer them, of course, we're going to do the best that we can to guide them through the process to make it very simple to get started and to, move into their degree. And for people that, let's say they want something that we can't offer them, for example, we don't offer a nursing program, but we have people calling us all the time. So depending on the student and depending on where they live and depending on what they have, what's available to them and what they're, what they have access to, we will guide them for what we could do. Maybe we could offer them certain courses. We could offer them certain exams. We can't offer them other things. So we'll do the best that we could to guide them through whichever part of the process we can.
Right. And I like it how you view yourselves really like as a community resource, as like very
really
oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always tell people that, when people tell us, like, we've had comments from people, we always tell people, like, before you do anything, like, even if you're not going to come to TTI, at least call, because you'll get like amazing experience from somebody who has dealt with thousands of callers at this point, who have gone to so many different fields. And we always, like, we'll have, like, did anyone ever hear of this? And somebody will say, yeah, I had a caller who was talking about it, and we learned so much from our callers. Also, that person did research, and we hear their research. So I always tell people, first call TTI and hear what we have to offer you, or we don't have to offer you, but at least the experience. And then, we'll be able to guide you from there. But it's always worth a call.
Nothing to lose from a phone call. You're probably doing a lot. So then the other thing is that how do you ensure that, meaning since you have this great program, it's so accessible, it's great pricing, it's careers that you've obviously looked into and know that are in high demand, do you ever find that there are too many people graduating and then there's not enough jobs to match? Like, how do you deal with that?
That's a really good question. Okay. So at TTI, we really are very focused on that, what you would be calling like flooding the market. And so it's always something we take into consideration. One of the things we pride ourselves on is having our pulse on the market. So we're always constantly reassessing the need for the careers that we're offering, as well as job availability. So in general, most of our programs have a limit to the amount of students we would have based on location. So for example, our speech therapy program, we only accept 24 students a year in our New York, New Jersey program, and we have over 200 applicants. And in that way, we don't really flood the speech therapy market. Same with occupational therapy, you're gonna have a max of 21 students. You know, the BCBA program, you're gonna have, we run it across the world, so there's less of a chance of flooding. But then again, we have like a program like OTA where we just pulled the program. We had the Medicaid system just completely restructured, and a lot of our OTA graduates, unfortunately, were left without jobs, and so we just pulled the program, and we don't offer it. As of now, it's possible we'll re-offer it again, but for right now, it's not on the market, and we really try to stay conscious of what the market is looking for and to provide the market with those types of graduates.
Wow, that's really, really unheard of. I don't know colleges who do that. Now, so you're looking.
You should know there really are colleges that don't do that. We've had multiple calls with colleges who will try to push us to run a certain program, and we're like, are you serious? Like, we're not just in the business to get people in a program. We want them to get a job, you know?
So the other thing is, so you try to make sure that it's degrees that are necessary, but then they graduate the program, they're out on their own, right? Do you follow up with them? Like, do they find jobs? Do you know what the rate is?
Yes. Okay. Good question. So for the most part, I'm always going to have that one student that's going to come back to bite me and say, that's not true. We're not hired, you know, but for the most part, we have like a 100% hire rate on our student. Any student that we've spoken to, that we follow up with, that we meet on the street, they're always telling us, I got my degree with you and I'm doing amazing. And they'll tell us how successful they are, Baruch Hashem. So I would love to say that our placement rate is 100. The way I can base this off of is that almost every time before before our students even graduate, we have agencies and companies that are begging us to come get first dibs on our students. They try to come present to them to almost grab them, so they can get them the minute they get their license or they pass their boards. We also have something called the TTI job board, which is a service we provide to our students. It's almost like a collection of all the different jobs that are out there, and we have I don't even know how many. We get like an email a day of job offers from different companies and agencies for jobs that are related to the fields that we offer. And we are about every 3 to 4 weeks, we send out this job board email blast to all of our graduates and all of our students. And that way they have access to the most, up and coming jobs in various locations. We obviously have, in some programs, we have like an optional internship in place, which leads to a job. We do our best to help with jobs. I know that I've networked. You've met me at the Candidates job fair, so you know that we make strategic partnerships with a lot of different companies and agencies, and they know about us, and they know about our students, they know about our graduates, and they hire them. So TTI is all about from beginning to end. We try to help the student from the first call to admissions through their job placement. So again, the goal is for them to be able to take their training and to be able to go and work. So we try to make that really happen. And I think we do a pretty good job. We really get very positive feedback.
It sounds like it. Wow. Okay. So you make sure that they're in the right program. You make sure that they get through their BA and get their master's so they can work right away. You make sure that they get jobs. And it sounds excellent. I guess, yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. And I guess we'll follow up with more specific questions on particular degrees, but this was a really good introduction. Thank you. Why should I go to TTI? Right? So what's
a really good question. Okay. So career school is something that I'm extremely passionate about. It is this awesome invention, like this awesome creation. It took years of effort and work to put together, and the result is so obvious that it's like mind-boggling. Anyone who's worked in career school, has graduated from career school, has witnessed somebody who's been in our career school is literally blown away. And so I'm so happy to be able to give it over and make, really clarify for our audience what career school is, and so they could really gain appreciation for it. So career school is for someone who is really creative, has a creative edge to them. They may not necessarily be good at drawing or dancing or singing, whatever you would view as creative, but really somebody who has like a creative edge to them, okay? Their mind could think creatively. It could be academic person and it could be a non-academic person. That's what's beautiful about it. It's not limited to that. It's really for somebody who's just extremely motivated. Now, what differentiates our career school from any other, I don't know, training in the creative area out there is that our career school is the only from certified BPSS program out there, which means that we are a legal career school, a trade school, according to the state of New York and New Jersey. What that means is that we are bound by the laws of New York and New Jersey's trade schools to teach a certain curriculum, and therefore we teach what we say we are going to teach. When you view our curriculum and you hold it up against some very prestigious, even colleges that offer the comparable thing, like a graphic design or a web design program in a college, you're going to see that our curriculum is an exact match because of the fact that we are a certified career school. Therefore, the goal of our career school is, it's not like if you want to dabble in photography and you think like, hi, I always want to take pictures, let me try to learn how to take pictures. Not for you. Career school is for somebody who is really serious about going into a certain career. So if somebody wants to be top-notch interior decorator or designer, our program is for them. If somebody wants to be a most amazing web designer, our program is for them. If somebody wants to be like the most sought after photographer, then our program is for them. What's different about our program is that the certificate that the person is graduating with is actually a legal certificate, meaning it's coming from a certified trade school. Literally, you come in, you decide you want to go for this career, we're going to train you, and what we do is we get people that are the top in their field to teach that specific area. So let's say photography is the easiest one to explain. So let's say photography, we teach portrait photography, we teach newborn photography, we teach commercial photography, we're teaching product photography, we're teaching web photography, we're teaching all different types of photography that a photographer would experience. And somebody comes into the program and they're not exactly sure what area of photography they might be interested in. And we've even had like our instructors tell me that the person, like some of their students think they're coming in, they're for sure doing portrait photography, and then they leave and they do commercial photography. Like it's, you know, it's interesting that our students get an experience of being exposed to everything, and then they really find the area that they're most interested in. What we do is we get the top instructors, like the people that you hear about that are famous in their field. We get those people to teach for us, each in their, you know, according to their expertise. So the students get like a really, really good, well-rounded understanding of each area. So, I mean, we have only brand names, literally teaching for us.
Yeah, no, I know some of them, so I know what you're talking about. And it's so interesting because it's not like just having a professor who's like just in the like practice of teaching, but it's someone who's like a business person that you can actually learn from, which is so much more useful.
Right, and not only that, what we find is most invaluable is that our students get the ability to have these men and women really be mentors for them once they graduate. So for example, let's say in Brooklyn photography, we have Maishi Williger. I know that he's like,
wow,
very big
I
name.
see his stuff like in the family table all the time.
Yeah,
family first,
always all over, exactly. We have Miriam Hershkowitz from eNotation. She does web development. We have, I'm trying to think, we have Vivi Kielsen. I know people know her for her drawing she does in our Liquid Career School.
Wow.
We just have amazing instructors. We really, really do. And ZC Neymark, I don't want to exclude her. ZC Neymark is unbelievable. Wow. She's writing in the Vina. She's world renowned for her interior design. Like she's top of the line, and she's one of our most dedicated instructors.
Incredible. Okay, so that really, really answers like why there's a career school and why it's not just a piece of paper and why it's so worthwhile paying for it. And I also love the fact that there's that option because it's funny because you're sort of like a college who's saying like, we don't necessarily think that you need a degree, right? Which is different than most colleges.
100%. So of course, a degree is only, again, it's a pathway to working in a certain field. So if you're meant to be an occupational therapist, then you should become an occupational therapist. And that to get there, you need a degree, but not everyone is meant to do that. A lot of people are meant to be amazing web designers and they should go for that. And so
yeah, and it's so great. It's so great to see that option, because I work with so many people who like chose like a profession because it was a degree, because that's what you're supposed to do, and then they go become a photographer or web designer or something else. I mean, so many people like that. So
yeah,
it's nice that it's like up there in the same place. It's a completely another valid option.
100%. And I'm saying you'll see that across the board from us. We'll offer something like computer programming, which really in the real world, I've heard this so many times, you do not need a computer programming degree to be a programmer. You really just need to know what you're doing, and you really need to know what you're doing. So the training that we give our students in programming is really going to set the groundwork for them to be able to do that. And that's really what's valuable.
So I'm wondering if you could walk me through like the different options, general options, specific options. So I would love to hear some more information.
So in general, when we made that statement where like the bachelor's is a stepping stone to the master's, we offer a lot of bachelor's degrees that are not a stepping stone to something else. They are unto themselves career choice. So for example, if you're going to get a bachelor's in accounting with us together with COPE, then that is an option unto itself. And Mr. Shem will be offering a bachelor's in accounting together with PCS. That is an option unto itself. You'll become CPA with that route. And then we offer a bachelor's that will lead to a master's with PCS. And then again, the bachelor's is a stepping stone to the master's. So in some cases, you'll see where a bachelor's degree is either a stepping stone, and that's what we'll try to push you along to make you go really quick. And in some cases, the bachelor's will be the actual degree that you're going to invest in, and therefore, we won't push you along. We'll push along the parts that are unnecessary, meaning to practically be an accountant, you don't need to spend time on history. So therefore, we'll push the history part. Practically speaking, you don't need to know science to be an accountant, so we'll push the science part. But the part where you're going to really need to know tax law and know how to think creatively to be an amazing accountant, that part we're going to really focus on, and we're going to train you really hard.
Okay.
So
and when you say push, do you mean that there's not a lot of emphasis on those classes, or it's like you can CLEP your way through? What does that mean?
Okay, yeah, so for your jargon, CLEP, so we don't offer CLEP exams. We actually work together with Coopersmith for those exams. And so we just offer these exams that are, like standardized exams on certain subjects, and the student will just like test out. They're basically just testing out their language. They're testing out their science, or testing out whatever parts of the degree they can. And then the parts of the degree where they cannot, meaning you cannot test out on accounting law, just not very, reasonable expectation. Right. So therefore we teach that part really well.
Got it. Okay, so when you say push, it's just like if you can pass the college level exam for it, you'll get the credits. We don't really care to spend a whole semester on it. But for Correct. The things that are, okay, I get it.
And that way it also saves two things. It saves the saves the student time, and also saves them a lot of money, because taking an exam versus a class is much cheaper. So whenever we could cut costs, we try to cut the cost. And that's why you'll find TTI degrees are noticeably cheaper, because we really try to just focus on the parts that need the training and not the parts that don't need the training. And that way our students really, I think I mentioned this to you in the past, our students, when they come into our programs, whether it's their bachelor's degree that they're training for, like they're training for accounting, or they're training for nutrition, or their master's degree, they're becoming a BCBA, because we don't force our students to spend time on things that are unimportant, like history, let's say, if they're going to become a BCBA. So when they come into the actual degree where they're going to experience the training element, where they're going to get the, the education piece for that field, they come in with like a bing, and our instructors, our professors are always like amazed, like, whoa, your students they're like fresh. They come in with this like energy and a passion. They're ready to like get going, here we are. And they like zoom through the degree, and they're like working hard, and they don't burn out. And part of that is because they weren't forced to spend time on things that were like completely unnecessary for their degree. And instead they were very focused on like, hey, I know I'm going to spend 6 months on my BA, or I know I'm going to spend like 3 months on my, parts of my degree for accounting that are like not necessary, but I'm here to sit through my accounting courses now, and they like go through it. So I think that's also a really big benefit for our students, that they don't get burned out by the time they do any of the like training pieces.
That's so refreshing, because like kids always have that question in school, like, why do I have to learn this? I'm never gonna use it anyways. But then like when you get to college, you're sort of like I did school, like I'm here to learn something. Why in the world am I learning these irrelevant subjects? So
Totally,
yeah, and that
totally.
makes sense. They don't get burnt out because they know why they're learning it.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions about two things. There was the degree that I saw, like nursing home administration, which made me wonder because I guess I'm usually speaking to women about this, and which is that something that do you recommend, like different male, female type of jobs?
100%. Okay, so TTI is not only for women, although I would say the majority of students of ours are women. We have a very strong percentage that are male. And so anyone visiting TTI site or checking out our catalog, it is not only for women, it's also directed to men. But in any case, nursing home administration is not for women. I repeat, not for women. And we are not shy about it. Anyone who will call us that's a woman, we will say, this is not a program for women, and we don't recommend it. And
Okay.
I don't think I have any students that are going for nursing home administration that are women. Usually because we're so emphatic, like this is really not a field for a woman. And that is because a woman must, anybody who becomes a nursing home administrator has to take on 24-hour responsibility for the health, the nursing home that they're caring for, and a from woman should not take that on. I know that there are from nursing home administrators out there, and I'm not there to insult them, but it's really not, it's not something that TTI we push. Part of our motto is, our motto is careers without compromise. And part of that is that we don't want to push from men or women to do something that we don't, according to our Rabbanim, is not appropriate. And we don't push women to do something that's not appropriate.
Good.
I think it's appropriate for a woman to be 24-hour responsible on a nursing home. So that's not something we're going to ever push. If somebody calls and says that they're interested in nursing home administration, then I would seriously push healthcare management, which is a really good alternative. It offers a lot of training for the healthcare field and provides them to be in positions where they could be managing a department in a healthcare facility, but they don't have to take responsibility for the entire facility, like to that level, meaning nursing home administration requires a whole new level of responsibility versus any other manager of any other healthcare facility. So, we would really recommend healthcare management to women over nursing home administration.
I like that. So I was actually recently, I was meeting with a Hasidish girl who was really interested in the medical field, but she's not going to go to medical school. She wanted to choose an option that you have. And so I mentioned healthcare management, and she was excited by it. But then I was speaking to someone who hires in a medical facility, and I asked, like, is this a degree that you require? And she's like, no, like, we don't really care if people work their way up. So I was like wondering, is this a degree that you find is necessary in most places?
Okay, so it's going to depend on where the person wants to work and also at what level. It's also going to depend on, that specific facility. And I don't know what type of facility this was, and I don't know their level of a lot of times when it's related to government funding or something like that, the requirements for the job are going to be different. And since a lot of healthcare facilities today are very much reliant on government funding in some ways, so the requirements for the job are usually mandated to a certain extent. So a place, let's say like Hamed in Lakewood, you'll need if you want to do a real management position, you'll need to have a degree. A place like Ezra Medical Center in Brooklyn, you'll need to have a degree. And yes, we've gotten calls where people say I'm doing this job for a lot of years and I want to move up, and now I need a degree. It's really going to depend on the facility and on what their regulations are. And we do find that people need to sometimes move up as they're moving up, they need the degree. And I've had people call me and they'll say, hi, I was recently promoted to this position and the requirement they're telling me now is I need this degree. We have had that. And again, if somebody's really interested in something medical, but they don't want to be a nurse or a doctor or a PA or a healthcare professional, directly working with the patient, this is a really good opportunity for them to get the knowledge and the training to be able to move up within the field and learn all the terminology and all that without having to go for the medical training.
one thing also that I've sort of like wondered when I looked at the site was the estimated like salaries. Like, where's that based on?
But we have a certain website that we use to do salary tracking, the median salary based on location. And so what you might find as a median salary is not necessarily reflective of a certain location. The most prime example would be special ed. In New York, we have people making $75,000, $85,000 a year, and in Lakewood, they're making $35,000 a year, and in Muncie, they're making like $45,000, $50,000 a year. So it's not really like a good, we're not able to make like an average salary on that because it's so completely different depending on where you're going to live. The one that's probably like the most consistent would be like a BCBA. You're going to make on average between $90,000 and $100,000 a year wherever you live. But so we try our best, you know, it's hard to gauge it based on location, but we do an average salary, and that's what happens when you do an average. It's that it's going to come out not always so specific, you know?
Right. Okay, so that makes sense. So it's an estimate, but like do your homework, like probably
100%. Yeah. And that again, I would go back to the admissions piece where call admissions and they're going to tell you, where do you live? Okay, you know, these are good options for you and these are not. You know, I had a woman who just told me she lives on a certain part of the country, and to become a registered dietitian just doesn't make sense because you can't make enough money to cover your basic expenses. So then obviously if you live there, I wouldn't say go for it. Right. But if you lived on the East Coast, then it would be a fantastic salary. So then I would say go for it. Like, it just depends on what you're looking for. And obviously, yeah, we want you to make money to be able to support your family.
Now, would you give out, like if you had a new potential student calling and saying, you know, I'm considering, let's say, registered dietitian, but I don't know anyone who's done it, like, would you give out a student's number, obviously with permission, so they can speak to someone?
Yeah, we have a reference list, and we always ask our graduates if they would be willing to be references, and obviously we try to spread them out. We don't want like 50 people calling one person and no one calling the other one, so sometimes we'll like switch them off. But we definitely have references available, you know, to the best of our ability. Does it happen that we have a program where no one's willing to be a reference because they're all shy? Yeah, but.
Right. Okay, I love that because I always tell people, don't go into a field until you've spoken to at least 3 people who are in the field.
Yes.
And really, you should visit someone at work and see what it looks like.
Exactly. I would always tell girls that. I always tell them, or even men, I always say, can you please follow someone for a day and make sure you like this job? Like,
yeah.
Follow them and see what it is. You know, it sounds very cool to be a speech therapist, but until you're sitting in the room and you're being a speech therapist, you really might not be interested in it. So find out.
Yeah, and I love asking professionals, like, if you, like, what do you wish you had known? And had you known that, would you have maybe considered not going into this field? And like, social workers have told me, like, if I knew so much of my time was going to be filling out paperwork, like, I thought it was just going to be like helping people. And that didn't happen. So things like that, like, go into the office, you'll see they're filling out paperwork a lot of the day. And then the other thing I tell people, when you speak to someone who's like, don't go into this field, don't just listen to them, ask them why not. Right. Because their reason is very likely a reason that's not going to be a problem for you.
Exactly. So true. We've gotten that all the time. And again, it goes back to admissions. When somebody says that to us, and we're always like, right away, we jump on it and we're like, but why not? You know, but are you like that? Is that your personality? Maybe your personality is completely different. Like, that one doesn't translate into the other, you know?
Right. I just had this girl who was really interested in photography, and she was planning on not pursuing it because her neighbor told her, don't do it, because she's an unsuccessful photographer, you know? So I asked, well, what kind of photographer is your neighbor? And she said, well, she does families. I said, well, that sometimes ends up being, not in all cases, but often that's more like a hobby. But if you do commercial photography, that can be much more of a business. So she changed her mind. So yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I also would say that family photography is the type of photography. I mean, this is just general. Family photography is extremely stressful. The session is very stressful. So unless you have a very perfect personality for it to take a family portrait, unless you're really cut out for it, you could come across as being extremely unprofessional, and the pictures don't come out as the family wanted, and therefore you won't get more clients. versus something like product photography is a lot more forgiving and really stays in place when you put it there.
Right,
So,
right.
I mean, it's really different. Even
Yes.
newborns are extremely different than a family of like 5 people, everyone's running all over, you know?
Yes. Pigs don't start crying and running away from you. Absolutely.
Exactly. So that was not a good example. You should tell her. Tell her and Eve to go into a different type of photography.
Exactly, right? She needs a session. Okay, so I have a couple of other like really specific questions. I don't know that we need to cover them. Maybe people should reach out to you. Like things like cybersecurity. Should you first have a degree in software development, or what's the difference of information systems? So I don't know if you want to go into that, or that's too technical.
So cybersecurity and information technology and anything that's really programming, anything to do with the technology field is an extremely important field right now. Every single system has to be, for sure, for cybersecurity, has to be protected, and there has to be the people who know how to protect it, and there have to be the people who know how to like actually put in the code to create the protection. And therefore, any field that deals with technology today is extremely valuable. We can't highlight that enough. It's really, really, really valuable. So, I would recommend that all the way. Anything that's related to data science also is extremely like a field of the future. The therapies are something that people are always going to need, no matter what. We always will need to take care of children that can't learn the same way or can't function the same way, and people who have, God forbid, have strokes or are suffering from a physical ailment. They're always going to need that extra support. That's not something that's changing over time. So any area that deals with like a therapy, a physical therapy like occupational therapy or speech therapy or education area, those areas are always going to be needed. Social work is definitely a field where we're seeing a trend towards the future. However, TTI's philosophy in general is that we're not pushing young people into the field. We feel like you really, to be a successful social worker, you need to have life experience. You need to have a mature perspective on life. And therefore, we really are seeing extreme success, like unbelievable success with men and women who have a lot of experience, have been in the education field for years, have been dealing with adults for years, and therefore they're going into the field, and those people really are being very successful. So I would say that's a field of the future, but not for a 19-year-old. I would differentiate it like that.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I wonder, like, when a 19-year-old's going for social work, like, well, who's going to want to be your client? Like, certainly not I.
Not I. So
yeah.
That's really what we do. I mean, our program is very different in that way. We really don't accept young people into our program as a general rule, unless there's very specific, like, ways that we would, but in general not. So again, I'm saying that it's a field of the future, but with certain things in place. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, meaning like with certain guidelines, I guess, like following.
Correct.
I mean, on the other hand, if someone wants to be a caseworker, right, then that would probably be fine, as long as they're not planning on practicing clinically. Got it. You were mentioning something else, information systems?
Yeah, I was going to tell you about business. I think that today the business world is really doing amazing. I mean, I hope it will still be doing amazing.
Right, next month.
We'll find out. But in general, the business world has become so much more savvy and so much more advanced in so many ways. And having a good business degree for someone who is already in the field is a really good way to advance themselves. So if somebody has exposure in the field, or for whatever it is, then it's a good field for them. I would also say accounting, even for somebody who's in business who wants to have like that edge. I would also suggest accounting for them too.
Right. And it's so interesting because like 10 years ago when we were graduating, these were like not such typical like from women options, but now it's like so normal.
100%. I think we mentioned this in the past, and I think we should say it now because I don't know where it will fit in. But we spoke about how 10 years ago the market looked completely different. I think we were saying you were saying like special ed, and everyone went for special ed, and right now we don't have as many people going for it. So we were talking about how the firm market is completely different from 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there were no options. And the only option for somebody to make a living other than being a teacher was really to go for special ed. That was the only from degree option. And now today there are so many options out there. People can make almost any choice they want. And therefore, I think when we were talking about markets being flooded, the special ed market is not flooded right now. They're desperate for special ed providers, and they pay really good money in certain locations. And I think it is an option for people today. I really think that people should start reconsidering it for that reason.
Yeah, that's really good to hear also, because I was also one of the victims of that time, shall we say.
We are.
Although, yeah, and I'm happy that I have the degree, and it ends up, I think I am always going to be a teacher, just not the sort that I thought.
Right.
Yeah, like then it was like we had 100, students in our class, and then there wasn't jobs for 100 of them when we graduated, right. And very few of them are actually still working in the field today. So we sort of like just have this like negative. I'm like, people say special ed, I'm like, no.
Right, so, exactly. I feel like people are automatic, like, no, we're not going to special ed. I'm like, why not? It's a great field. You work with kids. You're analytical. You can figure things out. Like, go do it. But
yeah, that's really good to know that it changed, and we have to keep up with the markets and not just like assume things because they've been that way, because it changed.
And the same thing I would also say for graphic design. I feel like for also at the same time that there was a special ed rush, so then there was like a graphic design rush, and everyone became a graphic designer, and then the graphic design market got flooded.
Right.
Then right now, so everyone became graphic designers, and then the market was flooded. So then we heard people say we don't need to be graphic designers because there are so many graphic designers. But then the funny thing is that there are so many graphic designers that there's no web designers, because everyone learned how to do graphic design and no one went to the next step. So yes, there might be a lot of people who can make advertisements now, but there's not too many people who can make websites. So again, that's where we offer web design, where people can take the next level and they become a web designer. But it's just interesting. Like, you have to just understand the market and understand how things are sort of trending. Like, yeah, graphic design might have a lot of people in it, but then, W's Media has no one to hire for web design, like you're like, you're in it.
For sure.
There's a struggle.
Yeah. Right. No, I think, and the most important thing to remember is, first of all, ask the person who would be your ideal employer, what they think before you make your decision. Yeah. And also, once you know that you'll be like the best at something, if you do proper testing and work with someone to figure out what you should do, then I always tell people there's no market anymore, because if you're going to be the number one, then even if there are no jobs, you'll be the one with the job. So
I always tell people that. That's such a good line. 100%. That's always our line. If you're really right for the field, then the people who are really right for the field, those people get the jobs and keep the jobs.
Absolutely.
Right?
I love that. Yeah.
So
yeah. Excellent.
It's always a matter of really matching yourself correctly to that field, and then you'll succeed.
Exactly. So do what you love and never work a day in your life. This has been fantastic. So much good information.